Now, in the last session, we were trying to understand what is the standard, what the Maven gives us, what is the life cycle of Maven. We understood the architecture, and then we went through the workflow of Maven, where we just saw a couple of important phases on how Maven is going to help us in build the project. So in that, I was trying to refer to the architecture, and in the architecture, I said you have something called as a local repository and a remote repository. So to understand it, what exactly is a local repository? A local repository is nothing but a directory in a machine from where you are running the Maven, in which it will be trying to check for all the libraries or all the dependencies that is needed for the Maven to execute. So it is basically a place where it will be finding all the resources. And remote repository is the location where it will be trying to download whatever the libraries or the resources which is not available in the local repository. So that way, where exactly these repositories are found. So by default, the local repository will be found on the machine as the home directory of the user where he is running from. So for example, now if I am running the Maven as a user, then by default, every user will have something called as a home directory in the machine. So under that home directory, there will be a folder called .m2, and in that you can find the local repository. So how do I know what is a home directory? Especially if it is Windows, then if you open a command prompt, you'll be getting a directory. And this directory is the default home directory of the user. In the same way, if you open or connect to any Linux machine, the default directory on which you will be landing is always the home directory of the user. So now under this, if you go to a folder called M2, you will see one more folder called repository. So this is the directory which will be acting as the local repository. So local repository is actually found under the home directory of a user as whom you are trying to run the Maven. So if you go to this, that's this particular location. So you can see that it contains a lot of files in it, and these files are nothing but the actual libraries or the jar files or the plugins, whatever the Maven requires. Okay, so local repository by default will be available in the .m2 folder under the home directory of a user. So that is how, if you're running it as a user in your machine, under the home directory of that user, it will be creating a directory called .m2, and under that, it will be trying to store all the files. And where exactly can I find the remote repository? And by default, the remote repository is available in this location online. So if you go here, you can see exactly it will be having some folder structure, and inside that you will be finding all the libraries or the plugins or the jar files, whatever is needed for the project to do some task. Okay, and you can see it will be actually found in the architecture directory in a way called GAV, where the first directory name is the group ID, artifact ID, and the version ID. So this is how for every plugin or a dependency that you have, it will be finding it in the directory structure. So local repository will be found under the .m2 folder of the user's home directory, and this is the location where by default Maven will be trying to download from the internet, which will be acting as the remote repository. Okay, so remember this, it will be available under this location or it will be available under this location. So by default, it will be trying to pick or store everything under here, and from this location, it will be trying to use any plugin or the libraries. So basically, when we do a install, that is Maven install, it is going to copy the files especially into this directory only.